Well, good morning. Welcome to Debbie's Back Porch. So glad to have you with us. Today I'm going to make another comfort food recipe out of CarbQuick. I made pancakes. Pretty darn good pancakes too, by the way. Now, just a warning, when I am making foods from CarbQuick, I am not following the recipes on the back of the package or on the internet. I don't find that I like the results. So I'm adjusting to get a different results, and then I'm passing that along to you. So let me show you how I made pancakes. Oh, by the way, give us a thumbs up, please, and subscribe to our channel. I have more of these every couple of days. So I'm going to give you the recipe as I go along, and this is the CarbQuick, and there are recipes on the back, and they have a website, and some of the recipes look like they would be fine, but the pancake one and the biscuit one, it didn't quite work the way they showed it. So I've made these adjustments. Their recipes don't tend to show as much water or as much liquid as it actually takes. So I have here 2 cups of the CarbQuick and 1 teaspoonful of baking powder and a 1/4 teaspoonful of salt. Now, I'm not putting any sweetener of any kind in this. I'm going to rely on the syrup. This is 1 beaten egg. And what I'm doing is, well, I'll explain to you later. I'm keeping track. This is 1 stick of melted butter. That's a 1/4 cup, folks. So I'm keeping track of what I'm putting in. This is a cup of buttermilk. I'm going to pour in half of it now. Then I'm figuring the volume, and then I'm calculating the carbs from the ingredients. And I'm just going to mix for a little bit. And my calculations may not be exact because they're not real clear about how many net grams of carbs that you get in a cup of the CarbQuick. They give you the calculations on the recipes and how much per biscuit or how much per pancake. And since I'm not following their recipe, I have to recalculate. And I think I've got it pretty darn close. So I'm mixing this. If you can see, this is very, very thick. Their recipe calls for cream and water, and I'm using buttermilk because I think you get a little leavening. So you see what I've got here. And by the way, I didn't sift it. You didn't see me sift it. And that's because it's very difficult to sift. The consistency of it, it just doesn't go through the little wire sieve the way flour does. And I have found that you don't have to sift it. You just have to mix your ingredients in really well. So this is with 1 cup of buttermilk. I now have just put a cup of water in the same cup. So I'll get the rest of the buttermilk. And I've added half of that. And so the recipe that I'm going to show you in the info section is going to tell you approximately 1 cup of water. And that's because I don't know at this point if 1 cup is quite enough. This CarbQuick has a tendency to need some time to fully rehydrate. So I'm putting in the whole cup of water, and my guess is I'll have to add just a little bit more, but I'm starting with 1 cup. And then I'll let it sit and rehydrate and determine whether or not I need more. You know, that could vary based on the weather, the humidity, the heat of your kitchen, all kinds of things. Now, this is basically made out of flour with some additions. You kind of think of it as buying Bisquick, I think, only that would be the high carb version. With Bisquick, what I found years ago was that there are recipes on the box, but that's probably not what you're going to do with it. You may want to change them up a little bit. And that's sort of how I have approached cooking with CarbQuick. And so far, I've been pretty happy with the results. So it's mixed. I'm just going to let it rest for about 10 minutes. So after a 10-minute rest, I'll show you how the batter is. It loses its grainy texture and gets very velvety and smooth, almost creamy. And it looks like a pretty good pancake mix, except it's a little bit thicker than I like pancake mix to be. So I'm going to add, that was about an ounce of water. And they probably would have been okay without that last ounce of water. But I like my pancakes more thin, more like crepes. So if you want to try it without that last ounce of water, you should go ahead and do it. Now, I'll tell you that all this mixing has been done in real time. I didn't do any time lapse on the actual mixing. So you have an idea how easy these are to make and how quickly you can whip some out for breakfast. I'm not using nearly all of this batter. I'm just making 3 pancakes for me, and I've put it in the fridge, and I'm going to test it probably tomorrow and see what kind of pancakes I get after overnight in the fridge. So that's it, ready to go. I've got my cast iron skillet getting hot. I'll meet you at the stove. So this is my little 9-inch Wagner skillet. I've had it heating on about medium low. And this is how I cook pancakes, or how I've always cooked pancakes. Unless you have a griddle where you can make multiple ones, I just make one at a time. They don't take long. I butter each one in between, and they're still hot when I'm done. But when I've had a big family, I used a griddle so that I could cook multiple pancakes at a time. I've had this heating on a medium heat. I've dropped in just that little bit of butter. And then before I start cooking, I'm going to wipe most of that butter out. I just want the pan to have a little thin coat of butter. I find that folks tend to cook at too high heat in cast iron. I may turn this down just a little bit, so just under medium heat. So about 350 is what you're going for, and from experience I can tell you this gives me about 350. So I'm dropping these in by 1/4 cup. And I drop it in. See, it's bubbling pretty good there. I actually flatten it out just a little bit when I put it in so that it'll cook better. And in cooking these CarbQuick pancakes, they seem to cook just a little bit more slowly than if I were doing the same thing with just regular flour. But with pancakes, what you're looking for is those bubbles when they come up, and then they start to sort of solidify. You'll see that new bubbles stop coming up and these bubbles pop. And then you know it's time to turn them over. With some pans, you need to loosen them around the edges just a little bit. And I will do that just a little bit, but with this pan, it rarely sticks. But with some other pan, it might stick a little bit. So you'll check the edges. Now you can see around the outside, or I hope you can see. I'm never sure what you can see. Around the outside, they're starting to be done all the way through. And that's when you start gauging it to see whether or not you want to turn it. So I'm going to cook this. I'm cooking it in real time for you. I'm just going to do one in real time so you can see how long it takes. As we're doing that, I'm going to tell you how I calculated the carbs. I added the net carbs from all the ingredients, and it was hard to determine on CarbQuick what's the net carb per cup. But I think I've done it right. It's 12 net carbs per cup. The buttermilk is 12 carbs. The baking soda and the egg together are about 1.5 carbs. There you go. Flipped that. See, no sticking at all. And that looks pretty good, doesn't it? Then I added up my volume, and what I figured at 1/4 cup is I'm going to get about 10 pancakes. So I divided the total carbs by 20, and I actually got less than 2 grams of carbs per pancake. There you go. It doesn't take long on the second side. And that's one done. I'm going to show you how I get ready for the second one. And then I'm going to eat pancakes. But I did want to show you this process for cooking them in cast iron. That's just a tiny little bit of butter, let it melt, then I'll wipe it down again. And I'm actually going to turn it down just a little bit because I shouldn't be getting that much smoke. So I need to turn the heat down just a little bit. Then in with another 1/4 cup. See, it's bubbling a little more than I want it to bubble. It'll be okay, but I turned it down because I want the pan not to get any hotter. And I'm spreading it out a little bit. I find that these stay thicker when you're cooking, and they don't thin out quite as they would if I were using flour. So I'm going to flip this one. Little time lapse on that one. And these are very, very tender. They're almost like crepes. I feel like these would be perfect to make blintzes, which I probably will do very shortly because, oh my goodness, I love blintzes. So I'm going in with my last one. As you can see, this really doesn't take very long. But if there were somebody else here eating with me, I would get out my griddle. So when I finish these up, I'm going to plate them up, show you what I got. And here you go, 3 finished pancakes. And they look pretty good, don't they? I got plenty of butter on it. I'm going to get my syrup. Now, I want to apologize just a little bit. I feel like I've just been rattling on. But I was trying to give you the information that I'm learning as I go along. And the process for these pancakes is so quick, it didn't give me a lot of time to share information. But here's the important information. I'm going to taste these. Because you know when you're craving something and you're eating low carb, you want to get it as close to your craving as possible. Because I find that eating low carb is not, you don't get very hungry because your food really satisfies you, but you have to deal with some cravings from the rest of your life eating the wrong things. And these are so, I made biscuits and the biscuits were good, but you could tell they really weren't made with flour. These just taste like pancakes, and they taste like good pancakes. And in case this is important to you, I checked my glucose levels 2 hours after eating these 3 pancakes with sugar-free syrup, and it was just normal. These didn't impact me any differently than any low-carb meal. So I feel really good about that. You're going to like these pancakes if you're eating low-carb and you need to deal with a craving. This'll work. Hope to see you again tomorrow.